What is going on at Aston Villa? Astonishing Villa, as some might call them at the moment. So good last season, of course, and decent at the start of this season as well. They were top of the Champions League group stage, of course, for a little bit, but they've got a winless run of 8 matches. And in that 8 matches, they have lost 5 of them. It's the longest winless run in Unai Emery's tenure at the club, of course. I know he's not been there that long, but still it shows because he's done a fine job at that their club. Their latest match was, of course, a 3-0 loss to Chelsea, which they were comprehensively beaten. And they're struggling at the minute, Peter. They are struggling.
They are. I think they've just got to the point where they started, like as you say, quite well. And now they're sort of swanning around a bit, playing their lovely high line and forgetting it's actually quite hard to do.
Yeah, Emmy will sort it out.
Emmy will sort it out. And
he's
now
the best keeper in the world.
And now he's injured. What are you going to do, Aston Villa? You're going to be even worse, for crying out loud.
That is a point, isn't it? You know, people will say, well, it's the Champions League thing, which is what we said as well. And, but they have, in recent seasons, been playing European football. Under Emery, they did go far in one of the other competitions that they have in Europe. And I know the Champions League is a step up. Obviously, it is. It's silly.
Easier to play in than the version that Newcastle had last season, one would suggest.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Yeah. We've got Newcastle down in the run. You'll get to chat about their struggles in a bit.
They don't even have a line, high or otherwise.
But Jim, what are you thinking about Villa at the moment? Are you worried for those beautiful Brummies?
Yeah, I mean, worried is strong.
Okay.
It's a term we hear a lot in football, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, oh, that offside trap is worrying.
Yeah.
Are you staying okay?
There's too much worrying going around. There's too much worry to do, isn't there?
There's a lot of worrying. All right,
Alan Shearer worries a lot about Brentford. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does, yeah.
Okay, well, let me rephrase the question. Are you worried about a team you don't support not doing that well?
I have sympathy for their fans.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
have you?
Sure.
You've noticed.
Yes,
you've noticed.
Yeah.
I think people
You've noticed
need to,
a general downturn in their form.
Exactly. We need to notice and not worry about footballing matters. Whereas, of course, in the neighbourhood, I think often it's the opposite that needs to happen. People notice a lot of stuff where you need to worry about the vandalism, about the stealing, about the dog jobbies on the pavement.
Right. Quite an interesting insight into the curtain twitching times of Marcus Bella.
I was more thinking about Pete.
Nimby's Bella.
Oh, I see.
I do all those things.
I'll park the pedantry for as long as my personality allows and answer your question properly. It is kind of hard to identify, isn't it? They look like they're a team whose best ideas have stopped working. And we see this quite a lot. And I think it feels like a lot of their players have hit a little bit of a wall at the same time. Like we spoke glowingly about Morgan Rogers a lot at the start of the season. It feels like he's been a bit less effective recently. Ollie Watkins as well is someone who scored a lot of goals, got a lot of assists last season. Now he's made 16 appearances this season, 6 goals, 3 assists. Good numbers.
Not bad, yeah.
Not quite what he was doing last season, and he was the difference a lot. And I think their opponents at the weekend are a team they would have kind of essentially seen themselves as being competing with in terms of where they're trying to finish in the league. And it was easy for Chelsea, really. It was they comprehensively outplayed Villa, really.
Yeah.
And that it's quite a stark contrast to where they would expect to be, really, and probably quite a chastening experience, that.
Yeah. Well, they are down in 12th, Villa, although the league table, don't know why I said that in such an ironic way.
Was it an extender? Was the table an extender, Marcus?
The league table is a bit funny this season because, again, a couple of wins and they're right back in it. But the fact is, Peter, they've gone on a winless run of 8 games, so a couple of wins would be very, very welcome at Aston Villa.
Well, we'll come to Newcastle in a bit, no doubt, as trailed by yours truly. But there are similarities in that I think both managers are getting a lot out of what they've been given effectively. I mean, maybe Emery has hit not only the limit of physically what they can do, but just mentally their versatility, approaching games in different ways. They've not been unlucky with injuries, what one would suggest. But I just think there's a lot of key players in that side who are just playing 80% rather than last season when they were playing 110. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like they were working so hard last season. And I think...
So you assume fatigue is a reason?
I think mental fatigue. I think mental fatigue and also just the limitations as their level. They got so much juice out of them last season. But like you were saying before we started, like they were in Europe last season, and they went very, very deep in that competition, obviously. So it's kind of like, well...
But I think the mental fatigue thing is a good point because when you're playing against sides who... you know that you're probably better than most of the time. I know they didn't win the competition, but it's not the same as, all right, we've got Bayern.
Yeah, you can
we've got even Juventus, it's a huge name. So there is that, and also the prestige of the Champions League. I think that's it. The concentration levels are enormous, and Emery, who's good at the details, he will be working on overdrive as well. We know his pedigree in the Europa League, and I know he's had tilts at the Champions League.
Pedigree and pedantry.
Yeah,
Unai Emery story.
Welcome to the Football Ramble. So I think everyone is going full tilt, and I think what you say about last season is a very fair point. When you go to the wall like that, and perhaps they don't have the budget maybe of other clubs, they've spent a bit, but they've also had to sell a bit.
Yeah.
And I think if to the point about the sort of the Championship players, I mean, look at Ollie Watkins. Again, the tune that they get out of him is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Ollie Watkins, people are now saying,
wouldn't call him a Championship player.
But he was.
A few England caps.
Yeah, but he's made the step up to Aston Villa and then some.
Yeah,
and people
McGinn
are now,
as well.
Yeah, McGinn is another one, exactly. Yeah, so Watkins now, people are suggesting that he should start instead of Harry Kane for England. So you need a little bit more from Watkins, I suppose, and it is about that consistency. That is the thing that separates the best sides from those who have a good season here and there.
Is there an argument to say they just overachieved last season and they're reverting to type?
I don't think they overachieved. I think
if you plotted everyone's wage bills compared to their performances this season, or certainly their league placings, there's probably something to be said for it being about where they should be.
But to use your words, Emery squeezed a lot of juice out of them. And I think that what we see nowadays in football is when we talk about a lot of these details and pressing and the relentless nature of it, we just think, oh yeah, players should be able to do that from season to season quite easily. Hey, you had 2 weeks holiday. Now get out there and run a marathon during a game. So you have that, and I think that what we see with the big squads is a lot of rotation, of course, but also with Manchester City. I know obviously they're not this season, but they keep the ball. If you've got the ball, you're going to have a better time, and so on.
They could have done without this Chelsea side to play. I think.
Yeah, maybe
because Chelsea have effectively four different sides they could play at anyone.
Well, that is why
at some point, though, right?
No, well, I mean, but it is the eighth game in an 8 winless run. Chelsea, though, are an interesting comparison because Chelsea, as we've said, when they do play in the Europa Conference League, which of course is a step down for them, there's no messing about that. I did enjoy on Match of the Day too on Sunday night when Mark Chapman went to make a comment about the Europa Conference League to Alan Shearer, and David Moyes went, hang on, what's wrong with the Conference League? That was lovely. But with the Conference League, Chelsea can rest all their first team. So they are fresh and they've got a squad size that can do it. If Villa, they can rotate a bit, but we know really what their best 11 is, or certainly most of it. And you're not going to rest in the Champions League for crying out loud.
Is there a possibility as well that they're into December now? The season's very much up and running and established. That perhaps their first 11 isn't quite as good as it was last season. Douglas Luiz's big miss, right? He was ever present in that team and did a lot in that midfield. It was really, really important. And perhaps it isn't functioning quite as well as it did.
Yeah, maybe. And also it's the expectation as well. You look at a lot of these players, they're not used to, some of them are not used to this kind of level of expectation. Right, now you're a Champions League club. Go out and win. Okay, maybe not at Anfield or maybe not at the Emirates or something, but basically, far more often than not, go and win every week. And I think that goes into the mental fatigue, and I think that's probably what it is. Although they've not done themselves too many favours. Like we say, individual errors. I mean, Watkins had a couple of chances against Chelsea in their latest game, or their last game, should I say. Emi Martinez did recover from making a wonderful save, but that shows you, a bit of the sloppiness there that perhaps wasn't there last season with certain individuals.
But lovely to see a free kick in the box.
Yeah, it's always good.
Always good.
It's always good. So they're not as prolific in front of goal this season. The goals have been drying up a little bit, which is of slight concern. And also at the back, again, haven't been that great defensively. So I think it's a mishmash of all these kind of things. But look, I think I want. We've talked about a lot about Villa there. We did mention Newcastle United. To compare them with Newcastle United, I think there is a little bit of a comparison. Newcastle, it does seem like they still have a little bit of a hangover from that season where they were in the Champions League last year.
Yeah, I mean, Europe kills form wherever you are, but it shouldn't really have a knock-on effect to the next. But then maybe with international tournaments in the summer, maybe that makes it more difficult. So I don't know.
I mean, as I say, with Newcastle, we saw this against Arsenal this season when they won 1-0, full of run-in, full of energy, all that kind of stuff. A side who have got quality, of course, but are tough to play against physically. But that style does come at a cost.
Yeah.
And
you also don't need it in every game.
Not in every game, no. But you think about the season, 2 seasons ago when Howe was really getting stuck into Newcastle, and you saw some of the new signings like Bruno Guimaraes coming in and whatnot, and obviously Trippier was phenomenal then, and you thought, well, everyone was talking like, in a couple of years with the money they have now. I know obviously the money, they've got their issues with the spending and the rules tightening and all that, so they haven't been able to go out and buy. But at the time, people were thinking, they're probably here to stay in the Champions League. In fact, will they go higher, Jim? You know what I mean? Will they challenge for the title?
They felt ahead of schedule, didn't
Take me higher. Lovely.
Which is what Tindall would say to Howe just before kickoff. Eddie, as I always say, can you take me higher?
Someone had to be buying those Creed albums.
It was Tindall.
Millions and millions of people did. Why not Jason Tindall?
Yeah, but Tindall would often quote Creed at the end of the game to managers, wouldn't he? With arms wide open. I'm out of Creed stuff, I'll be honest with you. That's me.
You've slipped into Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Was Creed was Nelson Mandela the lead singer of Creed?
Do you know what? You look back at it and I think, wow, that does make sense.
That does make a lot of sense.
It makes an awful lot of sense.
Got to do something. Listen to when you're in prison.
My goodness.
But I mean, last season you got to remember. Shut up. You got to remember that, like Brentford, Forest, Fulham, they weren't doing what they're doing last season.
So off Fulham.
Oh, I'm just saying they weren't sort of pulling up trees. One being a literal tree to pull itself up, so to speak.
Yes.
So like I think the league sort of table is slightly massaged. Let's say.
So
but
you're
like,
all right with Newcastle?
Well, no,
sitting in 11th.
I just think, I mean, probably wage bill's not a very good metric because I imagine Newcastle absolutely whores wages, amortised across 10 years or something.
Oh, yeah.
But they, compared to like watching them against Palace at the weekend, bearing in mind that they hammered Palace last season, I think at St James's Park, but it's still absolutely hammering with pretty much similar Palace side as well. Watching players like Tino Livramento, now I love him, I think he's great. But when you are under the cosh and you're not playing all that well and you need that little bit more creativity and a little bit more steel at the back, and you've got Kieran bloody Trippier on the bench and you're refusing to play him because he's got one foot out the door, I'm sorry, that those kind of decisions, you just sort of look at Howe and sort of go, yeah, you have improved a lot of players, but that seems like a point where we might need, Newcastle United might need a little bit of experience just to pull people out of it, even just for dead balls. We've got some big imposing footballers who could make all the difference. But Gay just had a really, really good match, and I think even the way that they've kind of tried to buy players in, there's clear confusion and a slight rudderless above Eddie Howe, and he's kind of
he said so, didn't he, during the summer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the way they chased after one player, didn't get him, and then panicked.
Well,
put in a couple of panic jabs, and
however, Peter, I will pull you up there because. Newcastle had one shot on goal all game, but yet their goal was a Mark Gay own goal. Agent Gay, we're going to call you in when the time is right.
I mean, you are looking at it saying that...
clever strategy, Jim.
I would argue pound for pound, player for player is better than Aston Villa, but you are looking at a bench, and you are looking like players like Longstaff playing in the centre a lot, and you're like, God, are we really still at that level?
He's been one of the more consistent players.
Consistent at a 7 rather than consistent at a 9, one would suggest. He's been consistent, but he loses the ball quite a lot. He's not a physically imposing player for me, and he's indicative of the level that Newcastle are at. I'm not complaining about it. I think Newcastle are great to watch compared to what they used to be, but Newcastle can't sort of deal with those kind of quick counter attacks, which puts pressure on the defence, obviously, but this all stems from us losing it in the final third, really. So it'll get there. We're just not creating chances, decent chances for the forwards. Bruno's not having a great time at the moment. So.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this because the narrative seems to be that Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes doesn't quite work as a midfield duo, which is surprising given their individual quality. But how do you feel about that?
Well, I think Eddie's kind of convinced of that fact as well. He does probably feel a bit Gerard Lampard about it. But they beat Chelsea at the Carabao Cup, then Arsenal, then Nottingham Forest into the international break. And all right, they've been pretty shoddy for a couple of matches. But if you beat Brentford in the Cup and everything's rosy again, Cup run's a massive, again, a massager of your form.
So I suppose, though, to maybe back up your point about, league table, and it's not been as bad. Newcastle are sitting on 19 points. Again, they're 4 points off fourth. It is jammed in there, of course. And it's only Liverpool who are pulling up all of the trees at the top of the table. But Newcastle United, okay, defensively they've been sort of pretty sound, only conceding 14 goals. But they've only scored 14, and it's going forward for me, which is quite clearly the problem. I mean,
they're relying on Harvey Barnes' kind of wonder goals.
Yeah,
aren't they, really?
The teams that have scored fewer goals than them in the Premier League this season: Everton, you could have guessed that; Palace, Ipswich, and Southampton.
Yeah,
that is the difficulty they're finding going forward. And if you don't score goals, then you're not going to win games. They became the first team to score in a Premier League match despite not having an effort on target since Watford against Southampton in 2020, which was quite pleasing.
Look, that is not that long ago for that stat.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But
you sort of look at the kind of look at the bench that they had against Forest away from home, and they won that match. Lewis Miley, Lloyd Kelly, Miggy Almiron, Jacob Murphy, Matt Targett, Martin Dubravka, and then you've got Barnes, Tonali, and Ossola. Now, I think if Ossola had arrived a slightly more complete footballer, they'd probably have thrown him in a bit more. But he's raw. He's a bit shorter. He's got everything to him apart from his finishing. I would just take a run of 5 games and just go, look, you got 5 games.
Yeah,
show us what you can give us, and give us a bit of an outlet, really. Because at this moment in time, it's very bitty and thin, and we've got an injury now, so it probably will get his chance.
But you compare Newcastle last season, 85 league goals. It was impressive.
Yeah.
As I say, when we talk about that hangover from the Champions League, there was a lot of injuries as well, blah, 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 blah. But when a team gets a little bit stretched, whereas I've said before, quite recently, I fear a little bit for Howe. I think he's got a lot of credit in the bank still. But if it gets to, come the end of the season, or certainly towards the end of the season, where it's like, come on, at some point, we've got to kick on. And you've got the financial constraints as well.
That's not for him to deal with, though, is it? And I agree.
Will they stick or twist?
I agree with you. And the twisting is, what other manager is going to get better out of that squad? I don't think anybody.
Get Mourinho in there. It's what we all want.
Here we go.
Well, it's exactly the sort of and this when this whole kind of project started. There was a real assumption that because insert money into project and good things happen. Good things have happened. But it doesn't mean that the patience won't run out. They could just move somewhere else and just sell the club. It's just if they sort of feel like they're not getting a kind of the return. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about money or performance. This is about PR and destroying the image of a despotic regime. So I don't think they've got their value for money yet, and maybe they never will. So they might move on.
Do you think there's a possibility that obviously in terms
can you take me lower?
Because obviously Newcastle have been hit very heavily by the new financial rules in a way that clubs previously weren't when big takeovers like this happened. So, which has meant Eddie Howe's hands have been tied in the transfer market a little bit. I think when some money is freed up again, as happens as seasons go on, maybe he'll get another big shopping spree. Do you think that's a possibility, or is it more likely that another manager gets that?
I think they'd probably give that to another manager personally. I think they'd probably sort of see Eddie Howe as that kind of a good transition, steadying the ship. And he has done an incredible job, and it'll be a real mistake to get rid of him personally.
If they do, Peter.
If they do.
All right then. Coming up after this, FIFA continued to astonish, and a goalkeeper scores a last-minute equaliser.
Aguanta Caramusi, ¿cómo puede? Caramusi abrió la cancha otra vez con Cabrejas, el centro al área. Le queda Caramusi, la volea. ¡Gol! cazzo!
Oh, enjoyable.
Go on,
Sky Sports could learn from that guy.
I know.
Definitely.
Well, they didn't have commentators, did they, in the last match?
Oh, yes.
I can't remember which blooming match it was, but they had to get
it was the Chelsea Villa game.
It's Chelsea
I think.
Villa game, yeah. They had the people who were in the studio just to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good, that, isn't it?
It is good. It's
Have like a backup little commentary team in a taxi, I think.
in a taxi.
Yeah, just circle around all the grounds.
All of them.
It's like, like when you get bitten by a snake, there's like anti-venom for different...
I don't know what that's like.
During September 11th, the only flight that was allowed to fly in America was it was a plane with a little vial of venom, anti-venom rather.
Oh, right.
In them. But basically,
How do you know that?
they work out. The president told me. I don't bloody know. It's just on the news. But like, yeah, you've got to keep venom close to. You've got to have like catchment area of how many people who are likely to get bitten by a snake.
So you have anti-venom
So you have
locally
anti-venom
available.
locally available, but it has to be a percentage of miles far away from the actual.
Well, so that
person
flight,
having
that
venom.
plane
You've
is
got to
always
basically cover
going.
it. No, it's not. It's not like no.
I don't, so why was it going then?
It was going then because a man had been bitten by a snake and he had to get special dispensation on a
right.
day where all flights were grounded
thought you meant
to get that
inserting it-
anti-venom up that man's chuff.
Up his chuff.
Yeah.
I
What
thought
a
you
day
meant
that guy had.
I thought you
It's like,
meant
just for me, please.
I thought you meant in areas where snake bites happen quite a lot. There's always a plane just floating
It's floating
about.
around, yeah, dropping
Call-
anti-venom. Yeah,
Call the plane.
Call a plane.
Yeah.
Call a drone.
Like those dusters. Just with anti-venom.
Spray out the anti-venom.
Yeah, hope your gobs, boys. It will be all right. Anyway, on to more ridiculous things, I think. FIFA have been up to their old tricks. They've been accused of what a lot of people have dubbed astonishing whitewashing after their official report into Saudi's bid to host the 2034 World Cup rated the bid at 4.2 out of 5. It was
You
unveiled.
can't give yourself 5 out of 5, though, can you? Really?
That's
No.
Oh,
It's too cocky.
I would argue they're learning.
Yeah. I remember.
They're learning something.
Do you remember
Yeah.
at school when you used to get stars and stuff? I found out where they kept the stars, and I gave myself like 20 stars more than everyone else on the chart.
Yeah, you buggered it.
And they were, too cocky. Just go for the 500,000 on Who's Be Millionaires, Luke always says.
Stars. Didn't you just get a star, and if it was particularly good, a gold star?
You just get a gold star on a chart, and but I just really, it was clear that there'd been something going on.
Yeah.
But never give yourself 10 stars.
Never give yourself 10 stars,
No.
especially when it's out of 5.
Yeah.
So, so it's 4.2 stars out of 5. And that's a good rating.
It is a good rating.
It is a good rating.
It's not on Uber, but it's a good rating.
It is a yeah.
4 or 5
true.
is a good one.
I think it's a good rating,
Yeah.
and you're thinking 4.2 out of 5. Okay, so
Yeah.
accommodation is decent, obviously. Transport, you'd think were there. Stadiums are obviously, they're scoring highly. This is all good.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Again, 5 out of 5, a bit too much. The bid and et cetera, it has been described in the report the risk of human rights violations as medium.
Medium.
So 4.2
Not
stars.
none.
Yeah.
Not no
none,
risk.
medium.
Not
of
even
that.
low. Not low, Jim.
Medium seems bad.
Not
if I
e-
get up in the morning and I've got a medium risk of perpetrating human rights crimes, I'd say that's
Low
a bad.
gives you pause for thought, doesn't it?
Low, even like a small amount.
Oi, moderate is
Possibly.
still
You
way
get
too
comme ci,
high.
comme ça.
Right.
You're like, you know.
But a medium human rights violation gets it can still allow you to reach the dizzying highs of 4.2 out of 5.
Yeah.
So we hear all the time of institutions who investigate themselves and
Yeah.
find that they've done
Always
nothing
works.
wrong. FIFA can't even do that.
No.
They won't even do that properly. They've investigated themselves, found they've done loads of things wrong in the past, to the point where previously it's cost people their lives and decided, it's
It's
fine.
like when you investigate yourself
Yes.
and you do not like the results,
That's right.
just go, but look over there. It's nothing to do with us.
Which is why that Ramble internal investigation, we scrapped it very quickly. I mean,
Stupid middle class women. Crack on.
because I have to take a moment there.
Right.
Apparently the report did appear to promise some human rights reforms.
Some human rights
Some
reforms. Right.
That would ensure rights for migrant workers, press freedom, and no torturing of critics of the regime.
Torture.
Yeah.
Why are they writing that down? That's damning, isn't it?
You know what I mean? That makes it worse.
You're saying no torture? Oh,
Yeah.
some torture. Come on.
Just
a little bit.
So if they said, okay,
Can we
fine.
do Torture Tuesday? Come on, we need torture. We're horny for the tea. Come on!
Torture Thursdays, it doesn't work. It's still a T, though. Give us 2 days. I mean, how are you going to improve this? Right, well, we're going to ensure rights for migrant workers. Okay, right, that's good. Press freedom? Yeah, good. And no torturing of criticism regime? I thought you'd been that. I thought that had already gone.
I got that one through.
There is obviously a kind of worrying lack of clarity on LGBT Q plus rights as well, which was an issue in Qatar. It's likely to be an issue again. Just like
love is complicated, Jim.
Yeah,
not getting involved, mate.
It just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? This they've done this before, and it was. They've released a report. I think doing it again is worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's true to form.
Sure.
It is true to form. I find it astonishing. I mean, but this was the only bid for the 2034 World Cup, as we were led to believe, which is a shame in itself. But obviously that was always the... No, anyway,
Can you improve on the Qataris' 6,500 plus dead people?
Yes.
Can you probably do that better on that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's astonishing to think that amount of people died.
Oh, it was more. Let's make that very clear.
Indeed,
it was more.
Yeah,
that was a conservative estimate.
That was a conservative estimate, and I would much rather listen to what Amnesty International have got to say about that than maybe the Qatari government. But if you look at the amount of people that had died in the makings of World Cups and so on. I think maybe in Russia it was something like 3. There was maybe 1 somewhere else. Now, again, the old adage, that's 1 too many, that's 3 too many, of course. And sadly, when you're dealing with huge construction sites, or accidents can happen. This is
also when people go back to their home countries,
yeah.
that's not that doesn't count as part of your ledger. So as soon as they're up, send them back, and they can die on their own.
Well, I mean, crazily, Peter, that would actually be more merciful than what happened in large parts of Qatar. There was an expression, which I remember we talked about at the time, which meant which roughly translated to means he slipped away, which was a very fit and healthy man, because they take usually men of a certain sort of young fit age to work on these construction sites from various countries. Nepal was one where they were saying to everybody, look, this is ridiculous, that so many people's relatives are dying over there, and the whole thing, he slipped away, was basically he died in his sleep due to exhaustion, due to all this kind of stuff. We are talking, this is horrific.
Yeah,
absolutely
but I mean,
horrific.
But it's like, I mean, there are the most galling thing is that the basic level of safety, and it's not just about guardrails and people falling off shit or people having things fall on them. It's drinking water and heat. And they're the major twos, and kidney failure.
The working hours as well, and the working conditions that make it really unsafe.
Maybe just provide them a bit of fucking drinking water, and where you can just get through. I don't know. I am just given some simple solutions that might improve that number slightly.
But this is how. But unfortunately, with FIFA, the way they've structured things is, there's only one bid. So do you not have a World Cup this year?
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, that's what their thinking is, because if it means saving the lives of thousands of people,
well, they did a thing, didn't they, where they moved the deadline for a bid forward a lot. So Saudi was the only one ready to go, essentially. So they need Saudi money to
apparently Australia couldn't meet the deadline, and so withdrew.
The theory is as well that they need extra money for the Club World Cup and to turn it into what they want to. And at this point, FIFA are just complicit in this. They're a human rights abuser themselves. They're a dangerous organisation.
They're the only people that can afford our money that we decided.
I mean, the thing is, right, the kind of argument that they may well come out with is, well, no one else bidded, so and their bid was fine. It's like, well, I mean, well, we want to build a new block of flats. Well, there's only a boggy marsh over there. Oh, well, we've got to build it. No, you don't build it there then. Yeah. You wait for it somewhere, or you rethink, or you do something. You don't just go, oh, well, bollocks to it. They'll do.
And the absolute gall and the arrogance of them to present this as if it's progressive. Oh, wow. Like they're essentially going, well, we will keep rewarding places that abuse human beings if they promise to do it a bit less in the future. And if they do it less in the future, that's good, right? And obviously these people take advantage of that. Like, they use FIFA's own hubris against them. They are not going to take their cues from a footballing governing body. But FIFA are so arrogant, they think like they're NATO, and they fall for it every time. And football is what gets used, as we've seen so many times, as a vehicle for sports washing. And it's infuriating that they're so stupid they can't see it, and so greedy that they just enable it.
Yeah, it's
I'm sure Mark Pugat should be walking down one of the many verandas saying that it's actually quite nice to see people not being drunk and having a fight in the squares.
Leave Pugas
Leave
out of
Pugas
it. I
out of it.
understand that was a little bit misguided, but come on.
Leave Pugas out of it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, I know. I think that... and if anybody's thinking, oh, well, European countries and the one we're in has done, awful things, no one's arguing that. No one's arguing that at all. And,
well, continue to do them.
Peter. Not talking about you and me.
All right, fine.
But this is... It was so apparent, during the build-up to the Qatar World Cup and so on, with the death tolls and so on. Whatever report you believe, whether it's a conservative estimate or perhaps one that one might argue is more accurate, it is like astonishingly high. And it's like if you can't...
One at Wembley was too high. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
the
exactly.
Bloke who died feeling
indeed.
that's too high.
And I understand Qatar and Saudi Arabia are different countries. I get that. But when you have a flipping risk of human rights violations as medium...
In your own report.
I'm sorry,
well.
chaps. But
also, I just don't trust. It's one of those things that, like, when you say like tofu dreg buildings in China being built, you sort of go, I mean, that's disgraceful. These people just pocketing thousands and thousands of pounds and just building these really unsafe, cladded buildings in China. Like, I don't trust that stadium that is being built if it's being built on the back of dying men. Like, I'm sorry, that may look like a beautiful corporate environment for everyone to enjoy their Mai Tais and stuff, but fundamentally it doesn't feel particularly safe, and I don't feel particularly confident travelling there to go and watch a match in a stadium that's built by a man who's like just about to cark it. It doesn't make it just doesn't fill anyone with confidence. So the bid is just null and void, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Did you see in a separate report this week, FIFA have also ignored the advice of their own subcommittee on human rights and social responsibility. That committee recommended that FIFA compensate workers who were harmed by the preparation and delivery of the Qatar World Cup. The committee argued FIFA should use its £40 million legacy fund, which it unveiled last week. But 2 days before the report was published, FIFA announced that the fund would be used on international development projects instead.
This is kind of what I was talking about earlier with them investigating themselves. And obviously, they're not going to give money to anyone, are they? Because then they admit culpability. And that they should do that. And we've seen it so many times. And, they've gone from being pantomime villains to just straight up villains. Yeah. And it feels untenable at this point. And what can you do? Like, there was talk, not that long ago about an alternative to FIFA, and what would that look like? And there are 2 World Cups between now and the Saudi World Cup. Is that long enough for people to organise a genuine boycott and for people in countries to get used to the idea that we'll miss a World Cup? If enough countries do that, it could kind of force FIFA's arm a little bit. And we couldn't
even do the LGBTQ plus armbands, right? We couldn't even do that. No one's going to do that.
But
it sucks.
A team not playing in a World Cup, just simply isn't as serious as as the situation.
I understand what you're saying, Jim, and we're saying this because we're 10 years away from it
and looking for solutions.
Yeah, of course, and I think you're right to say that, and absolutely. But I mean, FIFA would have also seen what happened in Qatar. It was one of the most enjoyable World Cups in terms of the football. As soon as that ball's kicked,
of course.
As soon as you hear the crowd roaring and all the rest of it.
That's why I think the distance,
which is the frustrating, which is why it's such an effective use of whitewashing.
And that's why football. I think the distance is key and is crucial because it's so far away that there's time to build up a head of steam and counter that.
Well, and that goes into the whole point about the deadline. Why are you dishing out World Cups for 3 World Cups time? You never did that before. The whole Qatar one was controversial, So it's all
a big shame, as a great man regularly says.
Absolutely, Jim. Right, it seems silly, but we're going to turn our attention to tonight's Premier League matches if we can. Ipswich
relegation 6-pointers all over the place.
Indeed, it is, Peter. Ipswich Town versus Palace and Leicester versus West Ham. Leicester, of course, battered 4-1 by the very entertaining Brentford on the weekend. Yep. Van Nistelrooy, Mr. Ruud Van Nistelrooy, was watching from the stands. Well, Van Nistelrooy's first training session happened on the Sunday after the game.
I'll take a West Ham, please. I'll take a West Ham at home, please.
You fancy, Leicester at home on this one.
Yeah.
So you think that Rude is going to not have he's going to have a rude awakening?
No, I think it's...
He's not going to have a rude awakening because he watched them against Brentford.
No, exactly. He's going to come out like ravishing Rick Rude and take a stop off and go,
Ooh.
all right, you sweat hogs. This is what a real football team looks like, and put West Ham away.
Sweat hogs.
You inner city sweat hogs at the King Power.
That'd
Watch
be
this
great.
happen.
I wouldn't have seen that coming,
No.
but I'd be very much up for that. So Leicester needs something, but then West Ham needs something.
Everyone needs a little summon.
Out of those teams, Jim, Ipswich, Palace, Leicester, and West Ham, who needs something the least?
Ipswich are parched,
Who
one
needs
would suggest.
something the least? That's a good question.
This is what we're doing now.
I would say West Ham because they may be.
Oh, they want a new
just
manager.
to get rid of the manager.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, well, that's an interesting one.
And they want to try out their new vinegar boots, as mentioned on yesterday's show, unless it didn't make the edit.
Look, we are looking for solutions all over the place on this show for a number of issues, some of which we ourselves have invented.
But it is interesting, though, down the bottom of the Premier League table. So tonight's matches are huge for everybody involved. There's also loads of EFL matches tonight. After FA Cup second round ties were played at the weekend. Always enjoyable for a bit of FA Cup action, of course. Did you see that the AFC Wimbledon, Dagenham and Redbridge game on the weekend had to be stopped after 10 minutes when referee Craig Hicks got injured?
Oh.
He ended up subbing himself off, and there was an announcement over the loudspeaker asking if there were any qualified officials in the crowd.
Get a qualified official in a taxi.
Well, that'll be, because there's always one floating around.
There's always one floating around in a plane.
And it does.
Drop them in.
It's the same plane.
It's the same plane.
It's where they keep the
Anti-venom.
the spare ref.
Spare ref. Bottle of milk when it's late and you can't get the garage.
There you go. Incredibly, Pete Donaldson has been vindicated again.
Fine.
The mind just simply does not know what to do with itself. So the fourth official ended up reffing the rest of the game. Is what
I'd
happens.
see that.
So
It's like, just get one of the subs like they do at Sunday League.
Yeah,
I think my
indeed,
Sunday League's team's getting kicked out of the league for being too violent.
Oh, no.
Right.
Because that's just the
You do
kind
have
of
a
guy
temper, don't you?
yeah, no. It's just a lot of players getting sent off.
What
for
do you do
punching.
when obviously it's not you? When
I'm usually running the line, Marcus, because
No, but
I'm not playing.
No, but are you? So if there's a fight going on, are you running in to break it up?
I know.
Are you egging on,
hanging back?
or are you just going? This is
getting me a bottle of water.
This is an ideal time to get me Pez dispenser out.
A Lucasade tablet. Yeah, just a bit of that, really. Just sort of going, you silly boys.
Yeah, you're a bit like,
Can't
no.
be arsed.
I mean, do you know what? I think maybe
Once in
10 years ago,
once upon a time, I would help. Yeah.
You would say, "Come on,
and
calm
I just
down."
like, this
calm down.
happens. I've seen this every match.
Yeah. I think,
Why are we swinging elbows
I
at
think that's
everyone?
one of the beautiful things about getting older is,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Go on, lads, you sort yourselves out.
Yeah. Sod off.
The whole world's just a safari, isn't it? Just going to watch this play out. There's nothing I can do. It is
Maybe
simply
this will
the
be
way
on
of things.
Maybe this will be on footballfights.com next week.
I'll see you down the front row at Saudi 2034. Is that what you're saying? Oh, dearie me. Well, I want to stay, though, with a bit of FA Cup second round chat. Something that caught the eye. I just... Wonderful scenes. Leighton Orient were playing Oldham Athletic. And Oldham, I mean, poor old Oldham, they could have really done with a win. Non-league Oldham, of course. But Leighton Orient goalkeeper Josh Keeley headed home from a free kick in the 9th minute of added time.
Anything more thrilling.
And my, did he enjoy it. He ran off like a man who just got the winning numbers for the lottery. It was superb. Knee slide the lot. And then they won it in extra time.
Lovely.
So good luck to everybody, of course, who's
Good luck to all the
playing.
keepers coming up in the
All the
last
keepers,
minute.
all the teams, all the football. Good luck tonight if your team is playing.